He's just a kid at the end of his half-life.
No, I live, I die, I live again.
Tie him up!
Throw him out!
Welcome to the Mad Max Minute. Is there not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white as snow? Whereto serves mercy, but to confront the visage of offense? This is Mad Max Fury Road, 1 minute at a time. I'm Rick.
And I'm Julia.
And today we're talking about minute 46, which begins with Max connecting the brake lines so the rig can enter the canyon. And it ends with Max returning to find a commotion has broken out. Here to explain why does the floor move are Tom Taylor and Pete Mummert from the Indiana Jones Minute.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Tom, you are a returning voice, but our listeners will be amazed to hear that we finally got the slippery and elusive Pete Mummert.
Hey.
He's the stealthy one.
Yeah, I couldn't hide from the bullet farm any longer.
Every time we've tried to get you before, you've had some sort of thing pull you away.
Disaster, yeah. So
We're nothing if not persistent.
Exactly.
so far nothing bad has happened this evening. So
The week is still young. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. I mean, we swiftly ran out of movies. That's the problem with only having 4. A problem that you two can sympathize with.
Yes. Yeah, we're pacing ourselves. We're trying to be smart. Smart and relaxed. That's our motto for now. Mm-hmm. For Crystal Skull.
you may have a new movie coming out before we do.
That's the thing I keep hearing, that wheels are moving on our end of the spectrum, but also there might also be wheels moving on your end. I don't know how much you're keeping up on it, but I've also heard rumors that there is another indie movie in the works.
Yeah, we keep hearing rumblings. You know, everybody sounds like they're on board and scripts are being... Last I heard, is it Lawrence Kasdan's boy? What's his name? Jake? Jake Kasdan? Is that? Anyway.
I don't remember.
Yeah, whoever, he wrote Solo and he's written stuff with his dad and he's supposedly writing the newest version of the script. That sounds encouraging.
Is Harrison Ford on board?
That's yeah.
They're still going with Harrison Ford.
They're still going with Harrison Ford, and I think Frank Marshall said that he is definitely not dying in the movie.
Yeah,
Which seems to be how you get Harrison Ford into a movie these days. You have to kill off his beloved character, but maybe this is there's some sort of loophole.
Maybe they didn't want to bring back Shia LaBeouf to have him stab Harrison Ford on a bridge.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
I don't want to go around doing Hollywood casting necessarily, but hey,
yes,
you could always get what's his name, Alden something or other,
Erickson or
Aaron Reich or something.
Aaron Reich. Yeah,
I gotcha.
Just do more young Indiana Jones adventures with him.
Sure. He was good. I liked him as Han Solo.
Yeah,
I thought that was a good example of like an actor just sort of being the character and not trying to ape the actor who he's replacing. You know, I think that worked really well.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he did a good job.
Stick a hat on that guy. It'll be good.
Yeah. Slap a fedora on him, put him in a leather jacket, give him a whip, just like replacing Mel Gibson with Tom Hardy.
Yeah. No one will even notice.
Throw a leather jacket on him, put him in the wasteland, and no one even notices.
Yeah.
But it worked really well.
It did.
For this movie.
It really did.
Like, that could work.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine Mel Gibson hanging off the back of an oil tanker on this little like metal tongue thing, reaching down, grabbing a brake line and plugging it in like this? Because I don't think I could see him do it.
No,
hanging by his beard,
not.
maybe. I can see that.
In a lot of the behind the scenes stories I've heard, that was actually one of the big reasons that Mel Gibson didn't come back, because when George Miller wanted to make this movie back in the late 90s, Gibson was all for it because he was a younger man.
Sure.
And then 15 years go by and Gibson's like, oh, heck no. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of an older Max and seeing how an older man survives in this kind of society, you know, when you're not Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked better as an old Mad Max than it did as an old Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it would have
That's
been a different
fair.
movie. This couldn't have been Fury Road as we know and love it with Mel Gibson. It would have been a different movie.
Yeah, I think you might get, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but I'm sure you might have an easier time letting Max take a bit of a backseat to the other characters with a new guy than you could if you have like, oh, this is the Mad Max, this is Mel Gibson, this is our guy, and he's in the backseat, like literally in the backseat.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready for 2 hours of an old Max shaking his fist and cursing these young whippersnappers out here on the road, and they don't know how to drive, and back in my day.
That would be rough.
Maybe they can bring in Clint Eastwood. He's still acting, and then they can do some sort of get off my lawn type of thing.
They could start a sort of Expendables thing with just grumpy versions, grumpy old men versions of all our favorite action stars.
I thought that was what the Expendables movies
actually,
were to
now
begin
that I'm
with.
saying it, it is kind of exactly what it was. Yeah.
It's a shame that Hollywood feels like they have to make this movie that's all inclusive of these grumpy old men instead of having movies that are appropriate stories for grumpy old men.
Yeah.
They're not at the end of their career just because they're old.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There are still parts out there for grumpy old men.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like a remake of Grumpy Old Men.
Grumpy Old Men. Yeah.
I haven't seen those movies, but I hear they're phenomenal. I hear they're really funny.
I'm amazed I haven't seen them because I love those guys.
I saw them when it came out. And the first one, I really enjoyed it.
I kind of want to blame Bob Dole.
Bob Dole?
Because Bob Dole was the spokesman and the figurehead for the Viagra campaign, convincing older men across the country that they're still viable and full of vitality into their golden years.
And they're
He
not.
emboldened them, and now look at Hollywood. I mean, really, when it comes to replacing actors for a good quarter of this movie, it could have been anyone behind that mask, because it's not until this minute when Max is up on the tanker filing away at his mask that he finally gets that thing off his face.
That's true.
That's
actually a really good
best
point.
moment of this movie so far. It's such a relief.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful kind of Max kind of image, just like standing atop this moving truck, just furiously doing something, you know, and it's every time I see him doing that, I think I want some prop guy to have spent like an afternoon to see exactly how long it would take to file through the metal till I get that off, like in real life. Just because I'm like, wow, because I mean, just he's like behind his head and like just he can't get like totally good, like, you know, strokes in there each time and stuff. It's like a really quick kind of jittery thing. And yeah, it seems like it'd be a massive drag, but he finally wins.
Although someone who suffers from misophonia, I think that would be like the sound of that constant metal on metal filing, especially like touching your head.
Yeah.
That would be hard for me. I might just leave the mask on.
And the vibration of that and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen the ads for those bone conductive headphones that they're selling?
No.
Bone conductive?
Yeah. So
Oh my God.
You put it around your head, and I don't know how it works. It's something that presses into the bones of your head, and it transfers sound that way instead of, you know, putting headphones on your ears. And apparently it's supposed to be better for hearing or something like that.
Wow.
I think it's a gimmick. But
Could be.
Yeah,
when
I'm
you
not
want to
sure
talk
if I-
about sound transfer through contact, P, I think you're absolutely right with the whole how noisy and annoying that would be. And he's been working at this thing for minutes.
Yeah. And you would feel it in your bones.
I love the anticipation for how long it takes for those final moments. And he's just standing there. And he's going to keep standing there until it's done.
Right. Yeah, there's like other stuff he needs to be doing right now. But he's like, just a second. I'm almost there. I got to do this one thing first.
I have to give him a shout out too. Like, as somebody who rides public transit every day, and I'm also kind of a germaphobe, so I always try really hard not to hold on to that rail or like the straps. I'm impressed that he can stand up there just so easily, nonchalantly, and file the back of that mask. Like, he's got some excellent balance.
I like this minute because it's a set. They don't go 3 for 3, so we don't follow that rule. But this minute contains 2 very good moments of, I don't know, is there a proper word for the release of a constipation?
Oh, probably.
Because we start off this minute with the fuel pod dragging, and then Max connects the brake line, and the wheels start rolling again, and we get that release of that jittering holding us back.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then right in the middle of the minute, Max is working away at that head cage, and he finally gets it off, and the soundtrack almost sighs, or maybe it takes a breath.
Yeah.
Kind of a, oh, finally.
That's the way wheels are supposed to work. That is pretty awesome. I didn't expect to say this, but I kind of, in a weird way, miss the mask, in a weird, the face cage thing on him, only because I really like Max in the first 20 minutes of this movie, where he's strapped to the front of the car, and he's the most talkative he's ever been in any of the movies, I think. He's like, that's my head. He's just kind of like muttering to himself, like, they stole my car. He's like very Popeye-ish almost, like just kind of like muttering to himself and chatting. And so there's like, I just have that image of him on the car with the mask. So I'm kind of like, oh, the mask is gone. Well, all right. He's still Max. Okay.
Yeah, the mask has definitely become part of his character.
Yeah.
So now that it's removed, I feel like we're getting a new character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it especially did? It gave him an interesting profile.
It did. You're right. Yeah.
Like, visually speaking, Tom Hardy has, a fairly normal looking head. Mm-hmm. It's not weird or anything like that, which I guess is a compliment.
You don't have a weird head, mister.
And the mask gave it some interesting shapes to go with it. Very iconic looking.
Yeah.
And now we're just back to Tom Hardy.
He's a handsome guy. Big deal.
I'm sitting over here. Oh, man, we have to look at Tom Hardy. And other people are going to be like, yeah, we get to look at Tom Hardy now.
Speaking of iconic looking, I can't get over how amazing these cars look. Like everything welded onto this truck and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, the cars seem older in this movie than they do in the previous iterations. Do we know like what year the apocalypse happened or when that happened in relation to this?
I think the apocalypse in general is relative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to do the math.
Yeah, the real apocalypse is the friends we made along the way. But if you want to crunch numbers, I think we're looking at somewhere between 20 and 30 years.
Okay.
I want to say.
I think we figured it out in the past, but honestly, I can't remember.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've had to think about it.
Sure.
And it's been a while since we've had to like apply it to the story we're watching.
Yeah. Does it get weirder because this movie's a little bit, not reboot-ish necessarily, but it's like a different guy. It's much later. Is there a sense either in the movie or behind the scenes that this isn't necessarily totally timeline friendly or something? Like it's not exactly a follow through from like the last movie or something?
They have gone to great lengths to connect this story to Thunderdome.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There
That's
is a
what it feels
comic
like.
that goes in between
Ooh.
that connects those stories very strongly.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes is absolutely part of the timeline.
Okay, cool.
But what they've also done is leaned so heavily into the aesthetic of this movie that they've, I guess, they've art directed themselves into a situation where people can watch the old movies and then watch this movie and be like, oh, it looks so different. And I'm like, yeah, it looks different, but it also kind of looks better. Like they have a budget now.
It looks better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming from the same place, it feels like. Obviously, it's like crazy cars, messed up folk, deserts.
The bones are the same.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I see what you mean about the cars. They look older. They're more of a 50s style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not great with cars, but
Yeah, me
especially the cars that are used as the lookout shells on top of the rig.
Uh-huh.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am, but they remind me of like a Studebaker.
Yeah, I want to say the word Studebaker. I'm not sure what even the definition of Studebaker is, but I agree with you completely.
Well, you're definitely in the right geographic area because I think they're supposed to be parts of a VW bug.
Oh, okay.
That back one looks like a bug.
While we're talking about the different shapes on the tanker, right around the 11-second mark, we get this wide shot of the war rig. And one thing that I really like about this movie is how George Miller directs your focus in action scenes. And now that we're out of an action scene, he goes from a close shot of Furiosa in the middle of the frame, and then we cut to the wide shot. And so there's a lot to look at. So people watching from a Western viewpoint will start up at the top left and go left to right from top to bottom. So the first thing you'll see is Max. But then what George Miller will do, which I don't think he really did in earlier movies, is he'll use a zoom to direct our focus to the front of the tanker so that we can see Nux pop out. And if you go back to the beginning of that shot, right around second 9, you can see Nux's legs hanging out from the bottom of that tanker.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, my
I gotta
God,
go
yeah.
check that out.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I see shots like this where there's obviously like it's noisy and the actor's like physically far away from the camera and everything, but things have to happen at a certain time. I'm always like, well, how did he know when to climb out and everything? Like, did he count to 100 or was there a bullhorn? Or I mean, I assume it's something simple like that, but I always think about that. Like, you know, you're picturing like George Miller, like, get out of the truck now, go.
One thing that I really like is that as we zoom in, you can see Angharad. She's hanging out the passenger window looking at all the people chasing them. And she leans back into the window and then Nux pops out. And I'm thinking, okay, either Nux was making sure no one was keeping an eye on him or he was just popping out because there's no way that he wouldn't be crawling out in a blind spot. The war rig is huge. It's got to have massive blind spots.
Yeah.
Angharad would have to be hanging out real far to be able to see Nux popping out of this hole. I bet.
Yeah. So when Furiosa freaks out is the second he gets in there, I mean, you know, he obviously wraps a chain around her neck and that would freak anybody out. She grabs her, you know, the stick shift knife and attacks him. But is the truck still going? Does she still have like her foot on the gas?
Oh, yeah.
I can never quite tell. Okay, yeah, that's what it seems like.
This truck ain't stopping. What's
No.
the can't stop, won't stop? I think is the hashtag.
Well, she had previously locked the accelerator and locked the steering wheel so that she could go to the back and fix the fuel pod.
Yeah.
And then Max was like, no, I'll go. So she might not have removed that stuff yet. She might have taken that opportunity to like stretch her gas pedal leg.
Use
crazy.
that post-apocalyptic cruise control.
Yeah, it took the apocalypse to make the self-driving car.
Why doesn't she just kill him immediately? Like, why does she kind of threaten him, but then
She seems
back
to want
off?
to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she definitely wants to. My big question is, when Angharad shouts no unnecessary killing, why would this count as an unnecessary killing?
Because it was so easy for them to take control of him. They were on top of him in a heartbeat. They were on him so fast.
And they could just toss him out the window like they're about to,
Yeah, but they've been killing dudes left and right.
Yeah.
But not personally, not directly.
It's yucky when you do it directly.
Well, I mean, she was going to slit his throat, and they are wearing white, and
Yeah.
bleach has got to be really hard to come by in the post-apocalypse.
There are ladies present. It's uncouth. But yeah, I can sort of see that. Like, I think that's a good point that they've got him. It's not like he's a threat because there's, 4 or 5 of them, already on top of him. So yeah, killing him would be like too easy or something. And
I love how the dag bites him.
Yeah.
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 Something I noticed, Cheeto does not attack Nux. She disappears.
Yeah. Like, I'm looking at second 45, and you can see everybody, including Nux, but no Cheeto.
Yeah, so there's like 3 pairs of hands that attack him. I think she just like slides down and under and she pops back up further over in a couple of seconds. I just don't think she has any interest in fighting him because she doesn't really want to be there.
She pops down like a whack-a-mole,
Yes.
and then she just pops up later. I'm glad that you brought up the fact that the dag bites Nux because it begs the question, what does Warboy taste like?
Ill.
Oh,
Begs the question, what diseases did she just acquire?
Yeah, really. I imagine being a little dusty and a little salty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely salty.
Yeah.
Be very gristly too.
Like a salt lick.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would be awfully nice if instead of being all salty, it was like sugary, like the Warboys are just a bunch of powdered donuts.
Aw, that would be nice.
But what's probably more like it is a chalky taste. Like they're probably just rolling around in chalk to get that white coloring. So
Oh, maybe.
it would probably be like,
Be like a Pepto-Bismol.
yeah, like an antacid.
Yeah.
Or maybe it smells like a baby. Maybe it's baby powder. I can't kill him. He smells like a baby.
Yeah, maybe she just like, oh, you're so, I can't help it.
She wasn't even biting him. She's nibbling him. Oh, you sweetie.
She's carsick and she needs something to settle her stomach. So she gives him a bite,
Yeah, there
get
you
a
go.
little bit of that chalk in her, settle her stomach
Carpet
down.
of the soda.
I find it interesting. In 2015, we had two movies, and I keep bringing up The Force Awakens because it did happen in the same year, where you have characters that show up at one point in a scene and they shout about a traitor. And in this one, Nux obviously yells, "Filth, you traded him," and then proceeds to choke Furiosa. Whereas in that other movie, you have the baton twirling stormtrooper guy who shouts traitor, and that's it. And I almost feel like, baton twirly guy, he got to have the spotlight and no one remembers Nux shouting traitor the same way.
I love how he yells it.
Well, they remember him shouting other stuff. He shouts a lot of stuff and it's all very memorable.
That's a very good point. He had other spotlights to occupy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone use traded as a verb either. Like, I don't even know if it
was
can
great.
be a verb. Like, I think that's amazing.
Is that like real English? Proper English?
I think it's apocalyptic English.
I couldn't
Or
find
is
it in
it
a
Waiting
dictionary.
Ones English?
Yeah, I think it's
Definitely reminded me of the Waiting Ones.
apocal English.
English.
There really should be a Mad Max dictionary.
Yeah, there really
I
should
bet
be.
there's enough stuff that you could actually fill one up.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
You have a couple of entries, like traded and
Poxy clips,
schlanga and comma crazy.
Yeah, Comic Crazy's good.
Aquacola.
Angharad is pretty good about pulling Furiosa off of Nux to keep her from cutting his throat wide open. And there's a lot of shouting going on. And I love how Max is scrambling around the outside of the war rig because he hears the shouting over the roar of the engine, over the roar of the wind. He can hear shouting from inside. And so he's got to get to that window. And when he arrives, we have a little back and forth between the different players of this situation.
Yeah.
And Angharad is vehemently defending Nux in a way, shouting about how he's just a kid at the end of his half-life. And I'm like, kid? I don't know how old these characters are supposed to be, but Rosie Huntington Whiteley is only 2 years older than Nicholas Hoult.
Really? I would have thought she was younger.
Yeah. Well, she was born 87. He was born 89.
Okay.
Maybe with her position as a wife to Immortan Joe, she, even though it wasn't a good situation for her, maybe she had this sort of elevated place in society that leaves her feeling older and more superior to somebody like Nux, even if they're almost the same age. That's my theory.
Our society does equate adulthood versus childhood with experience.
Yeah.
So someone who they may be in their 20s, but they're inexperienced, especially people who are more experienced, refer to them as, oh, they're just a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's a fair judgment. But
It's
I think
not, but it's sort of understand. I mean, I can see her calling him a kid, I guess.
yeah, I think
because
in this situation, it is a fair judgment. In our society, I don't think it's a fair judgment.
Yeah.
she's wearing clothes and he's being a nut. He won't sit still. He won't fold his hands.
But I think it's interesting, and this will come up a lot more 2 minutes from now. But how, in a way, he kind of seems like he is a kid. Like he's kind of innocent because he's been raised since he was a tiny kid in this world. He doesn't know any other world. So the way he's behaving isn't necessarily something that he's doing wrong.
Yeah.
I like the idea that he's an innocent he didn't make these choices.
Right.
His blind devotion is kind of childlike in a way.
Yeah, and it's on full display.
Yeah.
Like he's shouting. Well, okay, so Angharad is saying he's just a kid, and then he's saying, no, I'm not just a kid. I live, I die, I live again. And he's just repeating rhetoric.
Right.
Yeah, which is what a kid would do. Like, I'm not a kid.
You're a kid.
My dad can beat up your dad.
And he doesn't have a philosophy of his own to back up his claims. All he has are these sayings and mantras and logos to defend himself with.
Meanwhile, the wives are pretty much doing the opening to Rawhide, shouting, hold him, tie him up, throw him out, chuck him out.
That's great.
Move him on, head him up, move him out. Ride him in
It would
Rawhide.
have been a big hit at Bob's Country Bunker.
I think my absolute favorite part of this minute comes pretty late. There's a lot of shouting, people jostling around, and in the midst of all of this, Furiosa puts away her shiv, and Max appears in the window, and he's got his gun because he's expecting trouble, and then we cut to him right around second 58, and as we move over to second 59, he gives Furiosa this look, as if to say, I left 2 seconds ago.
Can you guys keep it together? For crying out loud.
First, the fuel pod starts dragging. Then I have to climb out and check it out. Not that he has to. He volunteered to do it. But then he turns his back for 2 minutes, and then war boys stop popping out of everywhere. And it's like, what is going on?
I used to travel with a dog who could handle things better than you guys.
Like, this is why I didn't want to bring you.
Exactly.
Getting back to her being insistent that they don't kill him, is that something that's come up before? I don't remember that, because it does seem, not that it comes out of nowhere, but that it seems a little extreme for this situation.
Yeah, this is the first time that they brought up the no killing rule.
Yeah, I don't see it as particularly extreme, considering that these women are educated. With education comes things like compassion and understanding that she is exhibiting. And Angharad is also, she's the leader of the group. She's very bold. I imagine that she was probably the one who cut this deal with Furiosa.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so she's on top of it. She has the deal that she made, and she's going to fight for it.
And I guess with everything that's been going on, she really hasn't been in a position. I mean, everything happens so fast, I kind of forget, but she might not have been in a position to say, hey, don't stab that guy in the throat. Hey, don't kill that guy. Don't knock that guy off your truck. Like, all this stuff has been happening around her, but this is...
Yeah, this is the first time that the wives have been out and about for a battle.
Yeah.
Except for Max.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
And they never, in Max and Furiosa's fight, they never got to the point where Max was imminently in danger of being killed by Furiosa.
Yeah.
So the subject of, whoa, you shouldn't kill him, he's a victim too, never came up.
Right.
Yeah.
And given what Max showed himself capable of, if he were in that position, Angharad might have thought, no, he should die. He's going to be a problem. He is not an innocent. And let Furiosa kill him.
Yeah.
She's fine with chucking him out the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, better to let gravity and the road decide
Yeah.
than to sully their own hands. But this look that Max gives Furiosa is how we end out this episode. Tom and Pete, could you tell our listeners where they can find more of you?
Oh, you can find us over at the Indiana Jones Minute, which is over at indianajonesminute.com. We are working our way through all the Indiana Jones films 1 minute at a time. And as of this recording, we've completed the first 3 movies, and we're working on Crystal Skull. And it should be available to you at some point in the future.
We also like high octane chases through the desert.
We do, yes. We've got no problem with jumping from truck to truck and beating people up and knocking people off of things and sometimes smiling about it.
As for us, we will be coming back on Wednesday. We'll see Max catch sight of more trouble on the horizon. The wives are going to try and explain how Immortan Joe is the bad guy. And Nux is going to get tossed right out of the war rig. The Mad Max Minute podcast is a fan project by Rick and Julia Ingham.
The Mad Max franchise was created by George Miller and Byron Kennedy, is presented by Kennedy Miller Mitchell Productions, and distributed by Warner Brothers.
Mad Max Minute is produced and edited by Rick Ingham. Our opening music is Verdi's Dies Irae by Daniel Bautista of danielbautista.com.
Our home on the internet is madmaxminute.com. You can follow us on Twitter at madmaxminute, like us on Facebook by searching for Mad Max Minute, and join our Facebook listener group, Mad Max Minute Beyond Microphone.
If you'd like to support the podcast, visit madmaxminute.com, where you can see what's in our TeePublic store, join our Patreon, or even donate to the show to help us keep the tanks full.
Thank you for joining us for minute 46 of Fury Road. We'll see you next time.